Welcome back to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program Release 1.0.5. Now, at the end of the last episode, we had docked up our ore transporter. You can see it here at the top of the station. But before we can send it down to Val, there are a few administrative tasks that we need to carry out. And the first of those is to swap over Bill and Bob, because we need Bill down on the surface to use the Kerbal attachment system parts to pump the ore from Val's mining prospector into the ore transport vehicle. So let's do that now. So let's do a crew transfer. Let's just right click and transfer crew. We're going to transfer Bob into the rather luxurious habitation ring, and then we are going to transfer Bill out of the Pioneer vehicle. There's Bill, so we're going to transfer him out back into the capsule up here at the top. So that's swapped over our engineer and our scientist. So we now have Bill and Jeb here ready to go down to the surface. But that's not all we have to do, because there is one snag. Bill, as the engineer, has none of the inventory that Bob was carrying, which is a bit of a problem, because Bob had these two pylons. So let's just go and put the two pylons into Bill's inventory along with the spanner. And also, to save a bit of time, Jeb has the connector port. So let's go and open Jeb's inventory and just hand over 5 of those connector ports. So that's going to be one to connect to the prospector vessel, and then one each for each side of the two ground bases. So that's Bill's inventory all sorted out. So let's close that and close Jeb's inventory as well. So I think it's now about time that we got down to the surface and actually got sorting on our contract, because it's been rather a long time since we attempted to acquire 1,150 units of ore. So it's probably a good time we start making money rather than just spending it. So let's just control from here. So let's put all the control for this current session into the can up here, and then let's undock. So let's do that now. There we go. Rather violent undock there. We can see we have Bill and Jeb in the seat. So let's get the T key, the SAS on, and RCS, and just use the N key to push away from there we go, to push away from the space station. Right, now, so it's about time we rendezvoused on the surface. Now, to do that, I'm using a tool called trajectories, and you can see this sort of white trajectory shown here, and that's part of the trajectories mod, which will show you your near future trajectory, taking into account any maneuvers that you might be doing. So we'll be using that. I don't think we need to use the waypoint anymore, so let's get rid of the waypoint. Let's delete that, so we don't need that anymore. And next, I think we need to find a maneuver. Now, we are orbiting around Minmus in this direction, and Minmus is rotating as well, and this is where the trajectory mod comes in really handy, because it takes into account the rotation of the body that you are going around. When you tick this little box here, body fixed mode, you can think of that as Val's perspective. So imagining if the universe was rotating around Val rather than Val rotating on the surface of Minmus. So by the time we get around to, let's say, here, Val is going to have rotated to somewhere here. So let's put a maneuver node in here and just see where we are going to be able to land relative to Val. Now you see we even get this rather cunning red X showing us exactly where we are going to land. Obviously it's on the end of this white line that shows Val's perspective of our journey. Now we can move this around and it will show how our maneuvers will change accordingly, or we can continue changing. There we go, we can continue changing the amount of delta V we apply. Now the red X I think has just got buried inside of the surface of Minmus. It hasn't quite drawn correctly. But I think this is going to be pretty good. Now I've gone for a slight overshoot simply because I suspect when we slow down we are probably going to lose some of our horizontal velocity, meaning that we'll probably end up landing a little bit short. But that said, we have our maneuver now, we have our predicted trajectory, so we don't need to display this window anymore. So let's just click that to remove that and get on with executing our maneuver. So let's just bring our KOS window to the fore and run our node script. So there we go, that started that running. But as always, let's get our pre-alignment done. There we go, get ourselves tucked in on that blue maneuver node. And so it's about time we fast forward to within 3 minutes of our maneuver. So let's just click that maneuver handle and you can see how our orange predicted trajectory has now moved around the planet and a lot closer now to Val's actual position, but the white line still shows our actual predicted trajectory based on where Val is looking at us. Now we've just gone to 3 minutes, so let's just reorientate. Let's just make sure we are all lined up. We don't really need RCS on, so let's turn that off. So we are going to lock in our alignment at 1 minute and 2 seconds, so we can use time warp just to speed ourselves ahead. So there's 2 minutes. 120, 110. So if you watch the nav ball very closely, there you go, you see that little kick as we locked exactly onto the little blue dot. So the burn is going to be 3 seconds, so we're going to be burning at T-2 or just under. So let's use time warp again just to bring our node time down. So that's 30 seconds, 20, 15, 10, and there's our burn. So there's our blue trajectory. That's the trajectory we're taking through space. And we're still predicted to land just beyond where Tamthi is currently positioned. So let's just pop out of map mode into normal mode. There we go. There's some of our junk behind us, only 20 kilometers behind us, and there's Minmus Station disappearing in the distance. We'd only drifted a little way from the station in the time it took us to go around the orbit of Minmus. So there's Minmus below us, and just here, just out here on the horizon, are the flats in which we will find Tamthi. So I'm just going to warp forward a little and we will rejoin our crew as they approach. Right, well, I've walked forward now, and as you can see, my predicted trajectory, which is a very difficult thing to say, is now much closer to that given by the trajectories mod. So we are still looking to land a little bit beyond Val's craft, so that's pretty good. So let's make sure we have Val selected as our target. Makes it a little bit easier to see. There she is, landed there on the flats. And let's get ourselves all orientated and ready to go. Now you can see the target marker there for Val's vessel. There's our retrograde marker, and ideally we would like the pink target marker to run straight over the north marker on the nav ball, meaning that we are right above Val and can simply stop dead and then drop down right beside her. So that's what we are going to do. So let's get the gear in position and just get ready to carry out exactly that maneuver. So let's use a little bit of time warping just to get us right next to Val. So that's 5. So let's go for 10 and just bring ourselves right down as close as possible to the surface and to Val's. We're 25 kilometers away as the crow flies. So 10 kilometers away, coming up now. So let's just reduce the time warp and get ready. Now we're currently on target speed, so let's get surface speed ready. And just get ready to hit that thrust. Now we are 8 kilometers away. Now if we wanted to do a suicide burn, we can do it at 500 meters. So we are plenty, well, we're 10 times that height. So we don't have to worry too much about our speed. But I would like to control it as best possible. Now I think we're coming up a little bit to one side. So let's just thrust a little bit across. And just see where Val's vehicle is. So we're still quite a way to one side. And there she goes beneath us. So let's get pedal to the metal. I think we've overshot. So let's just bring it back. Just see our shadow here. A little bit misleading because it's dependent on the position of the sun. But at least we can see roughly how far we are above the surface. So we are 1.3 kilometers away from Val's craft. And I think we still need to go a little bit in this direction. So let's just bring up the throttle a little and just bring it around. So 1.2 kilometers away. We're just going up very, very slightly. Now we're starting to come back down. So let's just move ourselves a little bit closer. And by keeping that more or less horizontal, we're not losing, or rather gaining, too much vertical speed. So we're drifting towards the prospector vehicle now, dropping towards the surface at about 15-16 meters per second. So let's get ready to kill some of that speed along with the horizontal speed that we have. So again, you can see our shadow just there. And we can see the target marker getting closer and closer to that north point. So I think it's about time we lost our horizontal speed and drop down right next to going to be very close now. So I think we should be fine. So let's just control our vertical speed and drop ourselves right next to Val. So let's just make sure we don't gain any horizontal speed. So it looks like we'll be just a few meters off to one side, which is absolutely ideal. So again, there's just a slight bit of horizontal speed. And a slight bit, I think we're just slightly losing our vertical speed, which is perfect. So there we go, we're going to drop right down next to the prospector. 4 meters per second. Just drop the throttle very slightly. Three meters per second. 2 meters. Drop the throttle a little. And ready. There we go. Tiniest of bounces, but perfect. Excellent landing. We did overshoot a little, but we are just 19.9 meters away, which in theory means we could probably just about stretch one pipe between the two vehicles. But we won't do that. We will use the pylons, and we will use 2 of them because I'm not sure that the angle between the pipes will work. So we use both of the pylons. So we'll do it as planned. So well done, Bill. Well done, Jeb, for such a precise landing. So let's get ourselves sorted. So first things first, let's just double check that Bill does indeed have all the parts. He's got 2 pylons, he's got a wrench, and then he has the relevant connector ports. Now we have connector ports underneath the various ore tanks that you can see on this craft. But we don't on the prospector vehicle. We forgot, so that's why we need an extra one. So let's get Bill out on EVA. Hi Bill, I'm sure you're glad to get out. Jeb did a great job at landing, but I'm sure you would rather be out and about. So let's just drop down, trying not to break off any of those panels, because those are the ones you can't retract. He does look rather pleased with himself, doesn't he? Right, so let's start our KAS, Kerbal Attachment System, building by taking a link from the nearest tank, and let's just walk out into the open here and begin with our first attachment. So let's open the inventory, and we're going to drop a part onto the ground here in front of Bill. Press H and clamp it to the ground. We're going to repeat that for a connector port. So let's H and I can't H because I haven't equipped. I'm just going to have to drop it now. Oh dear, I drop a connector port from a few inches above the ground and it explodes. But it does demonstrate you need to equip a wrench in order to fit pipes, but not connector ports. I didn't say that the right way around. You do not need a wrench to fix pylons to the ground, but you do need it for connector ports. And you don't need it to blow them up. But let's try that again. So let's drag and drop. Let's H and click. And then we're going to right click and link. Now it's a good thing we bought some spare connector ports, but we are going to have to pop back and get those. Oh dear, that must have given Bill a little bit of surprise. So let's go with the next connector port. Drop that onto that surface. Press H and click. So let's now take a link and walk across to just below the prospector vehicle. Now, I guess we could do without it, because as I say, it only takes about 20 meters to link one of these pipes. Anything over 20 meters and you've rather had it. So we don't technically need another pylon. So let's. So what we will do is we'll get our connector port, drag it onto here, H and click, and then we will. Oh, we're not quite close enough. So let's get a little bit closer. Right click and link. There we go. So the vehicles are now linked together, so it is now time for us to begin our transfer. But what I want to do is I want to do a little bit of crew shuffling, because as an engineer, Bill is a little bit better at mining than Val. As good as Val is, Bill is a little bit better, or he would be if he had any stars. He's not a very experienced crew member, so in order to improve his skills and his experience, let's get him to do a few experiments. Let's take a surface sample, let's pick that up, so we'll take that and get him to plant a flag. So let's get him to put that flag down. As usual, wrong way round. There we go, excellent. So Bill delivers, sort of. So that's his flag. Now what we're going to do is we are now going to swap him with Val. So let's just swap vehicles. Let's swap to the flag. Let's swap to the vehicles. There's Val. So let's get Val out on EVA. Now you'll notice it actually focused on the other vehicle, and that's because these pipes count as connecting two vehicles together. So that is actually one vehicle, and this was the control point. So that's why the camera switched to here, but we now have Val on EVA, so let's get Val to drop down onto the surface. Nice gentle drop. Go say hi to Bill, who has brought you a few tools to play with, because you're going to get to go back in the ore vehicle. But whilst you're here, you can take a surface sample as well, and you are just as able to plant a flag as anybody else. So let's get that flag planted. As always, flag the wrong way around, so let's just put something for Val. So this is Val's booty, is what we have in these tanks ahead of us. So let's just swap back to Bill, not to Jeb, to Bill. There we go, there's Bill. And get him up into the can above, up to the cupola module. So there we go. Now let's get the RCS on. He's still got his wrench and he's still got his inventory, and as you can see, his inventory is making him rather heavy, but he should just about be able to make it into the capsule. So let's get him boosted up and get ready to grab. There we go, grab and board. So there he is, he's in now, and as you can see, it is one vessel because both Bill and Jeb are now both in one of the vessels. I think Jeb's over, oh no, that's Bill's over there, and Jeb is in here. So let's get Val aboard the main ore vehicles. Let's just swap back to Val. There we go. So there's Val. So she's got to walk back to the craft over here, to Jeb's ore transporter. So past our pipes. Let's not crash into the pipes and break them. Don't do that. It's been hard enough getting here in the first place. So let's bring her over to this vehicle. So let's get her RCS pack on. There we go. And get her up and towards you, and boost very much more swiftly into I was going to say into the air, into the into the surface, into the space above the vehicle, because obviously she's not holding any of those heavy parts. So let's grab that. Oh, she's grabbed onto the side of the vehicle there. So let's just walk across and get her to grab on and board. You don't want to board. I almost broke one of those panels because they are very easy to break. So let's just walk forward, grab hold, and see if she can F. Go on, F. There we go. Oh, she's trying. F. Oh, down she goes. RCS is never been RCS packs anyway. I've never been one of my strong points, and Val's just demonstrated why. So let's just turn around, get on her RCS, and go straight up. There we go. She's straight up. She's more or less straight in front of the ladder. So let's get her going forward. And there we go, much better. So let's B for board. So we now have all three of our crewmates back in the safety of the capsules without any mishaps with the RCS packs. Now, we have to do the main job that we're actually here to do, which is to actually get some ore. Now, we've got, no, we don't want to jettison the contact, but you see the contents. But you see we have 75 ore, so basically Val filled up. But we don't have anything in these at all. So let's start our surface harvesting. So let's get that one going. And if we can just about reach, we can get this one. So let's start that one as well. And that's going to start filling these tanks. It's going to fill them very, very slowly, as you can imagine. But we will actually start filling the tanks across this line. Now we can either wait for them to fill manually, or we can start by right-clicking on the radial holding tanks with the Alt key, right-clicking on the holding tank here over on this side. You can see we've already got 0.01 of a unit of ore in this vehicle. But let's just go suck across all of the 75 units that was in that tank, and then we can do the same for this tank. So let's pick, right-click that one, right-click another one of the tanks, let's say this one, and draw all of that in as well. So that has transferred 150 units of ore. But we've got quite a way to go. To fill the entire vehicle, we've got to fill 1,950 units of ore. And that is going to get very, very heavy. But we only really need 1,150. But seeing as we're here, we may as well take it. So I'm going to do two things. Firstly, in order to compensate for the weight of all this ore, I'm going to transfer over all of Bill's fuel. So let's just get the fuel tank clicked and then Alt this fuel tank and transfer in all of the fuel that is in the prospector vehicle. Now that will render the fuel cells that I've attached to here are rather useless, but we do have a fair bit of battery power and we do have those tanks, and whilst this vehicle is connected via this pipe, the electricity is shared, so we don't have to worry about life support supplies or worry about electricity. That should be just fine. So that's one thing that I wanted to do. The next thing that I wanted to do is actually to fill all of these tanks with ore, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to time warp and wait until the tanks are pretty much almost full, and then we'll join our crew again for the return back to Kerbin. See you in a moment. Now, as you can see, we have 1,055 units of ore, which is just about 100 units short of what we're after. The prospector has been working now for 1.5 minima stage. You can see the radiator panels there glowing brightly with the heat generated from those drills. But we've only got a little bit way to go, so let's just complete the time warping and just bring ourselves up to 1,150 units. So let's just bring that up to 100 and then 1,000 time warp. So there's 1,100, 20, 30, and bring it right down, 46, 47, 48, and if we look at our goal. There we go. So we've got 1,150 units of ore, but it would be a bit wasteful to leave with some of these tanks only 2/3 full. So what I'm going to do is let's time warp forward, and let's just watch for the tanks becoming completely full. So you see, we really didn't need all 6 tanks, as was pointed out to me, and that would save a lot of weight and fuel getting us back. But I'd rather have the fuel. It is rather a nice booty. Oh look, there's a rather nice screenshot there. I think we just have to have. So let's get something for posterity. So let's get that with something send back to Gene. Let's have a look. So we can imagine that Val's out there with the camera getting that one shot. So that's wasted a little bit of time. So let's now fill up these remaining tanks. So let's just warp forward as sunrise continues over the surface of Minmus. Let's go up to 1,000 time warp. You can see it's filling up rather nicely. So it's going to be about, I guess, 2 Minmus days. Constant drilling. There we go. This is probably one of the most empty tanks. So as the sun sets on our second day, got just over 100 to go. So let's go up 10,000 time warp and just finish filling it up. There we go. So it was about 2.5 Minmus days. You just see the Mun. Is that the Mun? Might actually be Kerbin. Might actually be Kerbin right up there. So we're completely full. We have plenty of supplies on board. We have as much fuel as we can muster. We've currently got quite a bit of monopropellant as well if we get particularly short. But there we go. So we're completely full. We have both these tanks here are full, as well as these ones, because obviously this is for the grand total of all our vehicles. So I think it's about time we went home. But one thing you can't do remotely, you can't do from inside of the vehicle, is detach these pipes. So guess what? It means Val is going to have to get out. And we're going to have another bit of fun. We're going to have another bit of fun with Val detaching one of these links in here. There she is, bumping her way down between the tanks. And she's going to reach up in here and just do the detach. Let's unlink from there. Now all she has to do is go straight back up. So let's get her jetpack on and just boost straight back up. All she's got to do is go straight back up. There we go. Onto the little segment of ladder there, and then let's just board in. So no surprises. No surprises there. Got back on board. Bill is now lonely in his vehicle, burning away the midnight oil there, burning up energy, drilling for drilling for England. There we go, drilling for England. Oh yes, drilling for England. But I think it's about time we got home. Now let's just double check our contract. We have to collect our ore, which we have done. We have to put that ore on our vehicle. We have to be stable for 10 seconds, which technically we're doing now, but we are not in orbit of Kerbin. So it's about time we got in orbit of Kerbin. So that's the last piece of our puzzle. So we're all ready to go. We have Val and Jeb in place. So let's just throttle up and turn over towards 90 degrees. So let's get over towards 90 degrees. Do that quite early on Minmus because there's obviously no atmosphere to overcome and not much altitude to overcome either for the same reason. So let's just get ourselves boosted up. So let's get full throttle. Go back out to map mode. You can see that we've also got our predicted trajectory still on here, so we can switch that off. We don't need that now. So let's get ourselves up to, I don't know, 15, something like that. There we go. And now we're ready to carry out our usual series of manoeuvres. Now you'll notice that Bill Kerbin's debris is still marked there whilst it was within range. And that's because although he's technically not debris, we did detach from him, so we kind of jettisoned him as part of detaching that node. So technically he is now debris. So good luck, Bill, with that. But let's get our circularization sorted. So let's run our circularization script. And that will circularize us around Minmus here. So let's just clear that window. And we are all ready to run our node script. So let's do that as well. So let's have a look. We're not properly aligned, so let's do that. We've got 5 minutes until we reach our point. Now that's going to be precisely on the apoapsis, so we don't want to warp to it. So let's just warp to here, which is 3 minutes away. Now the reason we don't want to warp to it is because that would have warped directly to the apoapsis, because it doesn't give you the 3-minute warning. It seems to prefer warping to the apoapsis when you click on here rather than the maneuver node, which is a bit of a pain. So it's probably best to warp to here in order to avoid making that mistake. Now we've got a 10-second burn, so we're going to be locking in our trajectory at around 1 minute and 5 seconds. So that's just 15 seconds away. To 5 seconds. And again, if you watch the nav ball, there you go, just locks in. So the burn will be at T-5. So let's warp forward to 5 seconds. There we go, 9, 7, 6, and 5. And now we can see our trajectory extending around Minmus. So that'll give us into an orbit of Minmus, and then all that will be necessary is to plan our return home. Now we don't need to be in a perfectly circular orbit of either Minmus or Kerbin. We just need to be in orbit of Kerbin. Now, I'm not exactly sure what parameters that actually means, whether it is simply being in an orbit and therefore not being in the sphere of influence of any other planet or moon, or you have to be particularly close. But we'll worry about that when the time comes. Now we need to set up a new maneuver node. It needs to be on this side of the of Minmus, so around about here somewhere. So let's plonk it here and then pull on our handle here and basically go faster backwards. There we are. So we're going faster backwards, and if we pull out our view, we can see our purple point here is 3 million, so we need to do a little bit more than that. So that's 1 million. Oops. Now it's actually showing us that we're going to have an intersection with the Mun on our way back. So we'd like to avoid that if we can, particularly if it involves crashing. So that's 260. Let's just double check we've got our placement correct. Now to get your placement correct, you really need to be basically pointing backwards along the orbit. So we're actually a little bit too far ahead. So let's pull that back a little. Probably like so. So you can see we're sort of going in that sort of parallel to our orbit. You can see this really needs to touch here, so that would give you somewhere about here. So that's about right, and that's a good guide to whether you're going in a most efficient direction. And if we look here, we've got 281, so let's just pull on a little bit further. I want to get into about 100. 119, 113, 92, a little bit too much. 110, smidgen more. Of course, we can use the precise node as well. So, for example, we want to add just a little bit to our prograde. We can just click on that, 90, and you can see that being displayed here. So you can subtract off by right-clicking. So that gives us 98, and we're probably going to be a little bit short on because our node script always comes up a little bit short. So we're probably going to be a little bit over 100 when we execute it. So let's do that. So let's run node. It's 33 minutes away, so we've got plenty of time to prepare our alignment. Now the alignment probably won't stay particularly accurate as we rotate round around Minmus. Now we can use the orange warp to node handle because it's not over the top of one of our other nodes. So let's just click that, and that should give us warp till we are 3 minutes from our node. So let's just double click on Minmus as well to center our view onto Minmus. As you can see, we're just rotating very slightly, so we're just drifting away very slightly from our maneuver node. So we'll correct that when this gets down to 3 minutes. So there we go. So we're within 3 minutes of our maneuver node. So let's just correct our position. Now it's going to be a where are we going? 23-second burn, 162 meters per second. We've got 600, so that gives us about what's that? 350 left for our circularization maneuvers around Minmus, which is not that much. We're not actually going to be able to circularize, so we are going to be a little short of fuel. But I have a plan. I do have a plan, and you'll find out what that is in the next episode. But one thing at a time. We are 2 minutes and 20 seconds from our maneuver, so let's get ourselves to 1 minute and 12 so we can lock in our maneuver node. So let's warp forward a minute, just keeping an eye here on this figure down here. So there's 1 minute and 30, 120, and let's lock in that maneuver node. There we go, locked in. So T minus 12 is when our maneuver will be starting. So let's warp forward and warp back. And there we are, 15 seconds. And there's our maneuver. So let's just watch this from the point of view of Val and Jeb from outside their craft, this miraculous spatial view that they have. So there's us leaving the orbit of Minmus. 30 meters per second to go. And there we go. You see, we are slightly short of delta V. We are 1.8 meters per second left. So if we go back to map mode and then rotate round to have a look at where we're going to be. So that's the orange path now. We're going to be at 94. And that's fine. That's fine. Anything that's out of the atmosphere will do just fine for us. So I think we should warp forward to the change of SOIs. That's warping forward at 100. We're still focused on Minmus at the moment, so we're following Minmus around on its journey. We'll wait until we are fully out of Minmus's sphere of influence, and then we will swap to there we go, we have swapped to our orbit of Kerbin. We're just snapping out. There we go, finally snapped out at 94. That's just fine. So all we need to do now is maintain stability for 10 seconds, because technically we are in orbit of Kerbin, and we're done. Now you can see up here in the corner we've got quite a few messages, so let's just double check what those messages are, and we'll start with the one we've just done, which is contract complete. Now we spent an awful lot of money. I do seem to remember the rocket we just sent up was 140,000 funds. We spent a fortune on upgrading the landing pad. So I don't know that we've necessarily made a particularly significant profit, but we did make $500,000 in funds. We got 62 reputation for that. So let's discard that message. Now we're into the various stage recovery messages. We failed to recover this particular stage, and I suspect this was because we hadn't set the parachutes correctly to 0.5 atmospheres when we configured the parachutes on the large jumbo orange fuel tank for one of the craft we recently set up. So that would be the Prospector's launcher, the Prospector's orange tank. So let's discard that. So we lost 13,000, well, almost 14,000 funds. But we did recover debris from the ore transporter's launcher. So this was recovered. Oh, look, one of the boosters. So this must be one of the booster sections. So we recovered quite a lot of funds from that. So that was 16,000 funds could have been recovered. But obviously we didn't recover it all because we didn't land that close to KSC. So we lost we only recovered 43,000. So let's get rid of that. Similar for one of the other boosters. Would this be one of the boosters as well? There's probably going to be 4 of those. These London Fire Brigade twin bore boosters. So that's probably one of those, and that's probably another one as well. Yep, that's another one. We did some world first milestones over the last few episodes. We've done that rather cheaty crew transfer near Minmus using the built-in tools, with crew shuffling back and forth between modules. We got 18,000 funds for that, and actually gave us a little bit of science and reputation. So that was well worth it. We did a suborbital flight above Minmus, and we did eventually land right next to Val. And we did technically start the construction of an outpost on Minmus. Not exactly sure what the criteria are for that, but that gave us another 41,000. So that's 40 plus 30 is 70. So that's another 90, just over 90,000 funds. So that's not to be sniffed at. So we did rather well. So all we have to do now is get all of our crew home. But that's going to wait for another episode. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in those other episodes. Take care. Bye-bye.